I think the federal government is not dealing at all in any way with this issue.
Well, first of all, let's talk about Mark Carney and then the Liberal Party. Mark Carney was a...
Canada just tried to pull a shady stunt behind Donald Trump's back, and guess what? Yep, it blew up in their face. Well, because it turns out that the rest of the world isn't as petty or, for lack of better words, stupid. And Pierre Poilievre does not hold back. During a press conference he gave a few hours ago, when people are asking him, what the heck is going on with this government? I'm Jasmine Lane. Subscribe, follow, like, comment your thoughts down below, and share this video. All of those things help us to spread the message, save our country, and hopefully wake up more Canadians day by day. On live TV, a journalist actually called out the Liberals for their censorship games. And what do you do when you don't want the public to know the truth? You just block them from seeing it. But in this situation, somebody caught them red-handed. And yikes is all I can say about that. Plus, wait until you hear about how much the Liberals are spending in classrooms to try to convince your children to do this. All that and more coming up today on Over Opinionated.
It was referenced here earlier today, the Peachland wildfire. Yeah. And it brought crystal clear again to local media how we disseminate information quickly and effectively. Bill C-18 stands in our way to get back onto Facebook and Instagram. Are the Liberals looking for an alternative or rescinding that so that we can get that news back on those important platforms?
I'll say this, Steve. Thank you for the question. First thing, and one of the things that we have done, and I'll answer your specific question, but let me make a point on something we have done, which is, and you may not like this part of the answer, but I'm going to give it to you, which is that one of the roles of CBC Radio Canada is to provide unbiased, immediate, local information, particularly in terms of in situations such as you're referring to, and that's one of the reasons why we've made the commitment to invest and reinforce and actually change the governance of CBC Radio Can to ensure that they are providing those essential services. Now, to your specific question, I personally, and this government is a big believer in the value of what you do. I'm going to use you as a representation in local news, and the importance of ensuring that is disseminated as widely and as quickly as possible. So we will look for all avenues to do that. And I understand your question, and it's part of our thinking around that. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to the...
Well, thank you, Mr. Carney, for saying the quiet part out loud, that Bill C-18 wasn't about saving journalism. It was about controlling it, as well as getting some extra money from all those big tech companies, because you're already taxing your taxpayers into oblivion. And as well as everybody else, that you don't typically bite the hand that feeds you. So if the government is then allocating extra money to the tune of thousands, millions of dollars, you're probably not going to say anything that might screw that up when you're already in a struggling industry that sees less revenue year after year from local media, as well as the big dogs such as Rogers, Chorus, and CBC. And when specifically asked about free press being stifled, Mark Carney immediately refers back to government-funded press. It's weird how that's always a thing. Hey, our housing is really bad. Government-funded housing. Oh, people are going to school hungry, government-funded food. When you have a local reporter who asks that, and that's not clickbait, that's not a partisan attack. He's saying, here's a problem with what you're doing, and it's impacting us very seriously. We're actually being harmed by this government policy in various ways. He says, instead, you won't like this answer, but that's what CBC and Radio Canada are for. That's why we increased their funding. So he acknowledged the damage that it's done and then pretty much said, yeah, that's the point. So what he is saying there is, yes, we know that your voice is being silenced. We know it's hurting your business. We know it's hurting trust in your community, but don't worry, because our voice is getting louder every day that we have this.
But lo and behold, even though the government is supposed to release this information, I have found something really startling and perhaps unsurprising. Since early this year, the Liberal government has stopped updating these numbers that are supposed to be released to the public. in every level of every immigration stream, all of a sudden there's one common denominator, and that's that the government is not putting out the numbers.
Censorship, censorship, censorship. Whether you want to just control the narrative or ensure that people don't even know what's going on so nobody talks about it, that seems to be pretty tried and true. And it's rather fascinating that over the last 5 months, peculiar timing, that Immigration and Citizenship Canada and refugees has stopped reporting the numbers of people in our country.
This is data that we need to know, that provinces need to know in order to, deal with all the benefits that these people take up when they come to Canada. And, it's also, we need to know in terms of the backlog, right? Well, this hasn't been updated since April, as far as I can tell. So that's several months now. They're supposed to be updating it more often than that. Irregular border crossers. That's the euphemism they use for people who illegally cross the border into Canada and often claim asylum. That hasn't been updated since March. Canada Border Services Removal Program statistics. So this is the number of people that CBSA removes from the country. That hasn't been updated since last year, since the end of 2024. Let's keep going here. What else was I looking at today? Oh, the TFW program, the Temporary Foreign Worker Program, different streams of that. Most of them haven't been updated since March.
Are you noticing a pattern here, or am I just a wacko? We're gonna lower our immigration numbers. No data, though, to back that up. You'd think if they were actively doing that they would be wanting to brag about it. We're gonna make sure that we spend better. We're gonna make sure that our economy is leapfrogging other economies. I'm Mark Carney, the economic genius. No data, no budget, nothing.
I know you're going to have to peer into the mind of Mark Carney here, but what's going on? Why do you believe they are not coming out and giving an indication of what might happen? Why aren't they standing up and saying, we're looking at not bringing in the emissions cap, or we're looking at doing something about the No More Pipelines law? Why do you think, what's going on there? Why do you think the federal government is not dealing at all in any way with this issue?
Well, first of all, let's talk about Mark Carney and then the Liberal Party. Mark Carney for the last 10 years, was a net zero, keep it in the ground, green fanatic. He said that he wanted to keep at least half of our oil in the ground. And he believed he's testified against the Northern Gateway Pipeline. He supported all of the carbon taxes. He's publicly spoken out in favor of the electric vehicle mandate to ban your gas and diesel-powered cars. Now, he's tried to present himself as some big change because he looks and sounds different than Justin Trudeau, but he has supported all of the same policies. And what he's doing right now is ragging the puck and trying to drag people along into believing that he will one day do something. But he hasn't done anything other than hold a lot of meetings and make a lot of bold statements. The C5 is better than nothing, but it won't do anything for the energy sector here unless you also get rid of the nasty 9 laws that Danielle Smith is asking us to end. Like I said earlier, you cannot build an oil pipeline, even if the pipeline itself were approved, if the government is capping the production to prevent oil from going into the pipe, or if the government continues to ban shipping the oil when it comes out of the pipe. So it's not enough to just pass one law that gives himself the power to cherry pick projects. What you actually have to do is get rid of the nasty 9 anti-development laws. And that's what the Canadian Sovereignty Act will do. It will legalize fast development of major projects in hydroelectricity, oil, gas, nuclear, and more.
There are almost no words to describe how unbelievably frustrating it is to try to get this point across to people. And that's because of how Canada is. Canada's media, what people know, the information we have access to, if we Google something, our algorithm is manipulated so as to not show anything that isn't a government-approved messaging, thanks to Bill C-18 and C-11 to some degree. But so many people will hear, Bill C-5, he's going to fast-track national building projects. Yeah, that's awesome. Sure, that sounds really great on paper.
When Carney was running for the leadership, he said that under 10 years of the Justin Trudeau government, his predecessor, he specifically said at one of the leadership debates, look, we weren't in good shape before Trump. And he gave two reasons. One was immigration, which even the Trudeau government eventually said, yeah, we got that out of control. And what happens when you have more immigrants? And so then now there's more people sharing the pie. The pie gets less for everyone and prices go up because of demand. Where are you going to house all these people? Where are we going to put them? And the other one was, he said, that the operational spending of the Trudeau government had gone up, I think it was an average of 9% a year. Those things aren't going away. We don't have a budget.
But I want you to put yourself in the shoes of a developer, of an entrepreneur, of somebody who wants to spend their money in a big project that's going to make them super rich and also help the country of which the project is in. If you were told that the country that you're potentially going to place a bid on this project for is banning all of the things that are going to help you make your project investable, worth your time, and quick to deliver so that you can make the most money. But if the government approves it on a case-by-case basis, if the government decides that your project is of national interest, they'll bypass some of those laws that are still laws that are in place to ban the operations that you need to make sure that your project is successful. Would you have much confidence in that country? Would you? Especially if you read the news, perhaps, and you saw that in the past, other types of investments like that have been canceled, stalled, delayed, have had to be bought out by the government. Would that make you feel confident? I think not. I think that's exactly why we're seeing more and more cases like what Donald Trump is saying here.
Real levels of growth are going to be judged in a year from now when you start seeing some of these incredible plants, because we have car plants opening. They're coming in from Canada, from Mexico, and from all over the world. And they're coming in because they like the way the election worked out, but they also like the fact that they don't want to pay tariffs.
Tariffs, and in the case of Canada, the taxes, the burden that it becomes, and just the uncertainty that the Liberal government has done absolutely nothing about in order to fix our investment, in order to make the private sector thrive. When the government says we're not going to do that, instead we're going to get the government back involved in building housing, involved in feeding your children at school. We're going to have the government involved in funding our media. Like, do you not see what's going on here? This is scary AF. And it's happening right under our nose. And this one is so crazy too. This came out like 2 days ago, I think it was, that the wood fiber LNG facility, which is being built in British Columbia, has now come out saying that their costs have exploded and the government is delaying their permits, which are causing the cost to explode. And so Mark Carney sold us on Bill C-5. It was really going to streamline things. It's not. Obviously. So again, if you're an investor, and let's say you're wood fiber LNG, and your costs went from American value at $1.5 billion to $2.9 billion, not for any other reason other than stricter codes, government interference, and permit delays, how would you feel? And would you not say, screw that country, this is too difficult and stupid, I'm not doing this?
You know, this narrative that we're going to stand up to the Americans and we'll punish them with our counter tariffs is a false one. You can go back and look at what happened in 2017 and 2018 with the tariffs on steel and aluminum, and people will still tell you, whether it's Justin Trudeau or Doug Ford, us putting tariffs on bourbon and playing cards is what got the Americans to heal. Nope. As I reported at the time, as I've reported since, you look at the actual joint declaration. Why did Canada get those tariffs lifted? Nothing to do with bourbon or playing cards. It's that we agreed to stop letting China ship steel through Canada and call it Canadian. We actually dealt with the issue and the irritant on the table. What the Carney guys seem to be doing is not going for a deal for political reasons, and then allowing these false narratives to play out.
Every single one of the allies the Carney Liberal government assumed that they had for reasons I don't quite understand is really backfiring so hard in their face. Because after dragging Mexico as though in some way, shape, or form that's relevant to the problems that Trump said he had with our country of Canada, they decide, deflect. Look at Mexico, though. Bro, are you in high school? What the hell is this? But after doing that, they decide, you know what? We're going to send some people to Mexico to try to restore, rebuild, and expand our trade, diversify. Because Trump in Mexico, he doesn't really like them that much either, even though he gave them a 90-day extension on tariffs, and it, by all accounts, is actively working with them. And they tried to pull this weird little slime ball move to try to diversify our trade with Mexico. And what does Mexico say? Because they're not petty high schoolers and stupid. They said there's no need for bilateral trade with Canada.
From Canada, would you be looking to sign a treaty solely bilateral with Canada?
No, there are the bilateral agreements, but we have the trade agreement with the United States, Canada, and Mexico. We are also part of another agreement that includes Canada as well. So it's not necessary.
AKA, our priority is the United States of America, as is that with almost every other country in the world except Canada and China. And Canada doesn't really bring anything to the table for us. So, no, we're not interested. We're trying to repair what's been damaged with the U.S. right now, as you should be as well, Canada.
What's the general impression of Trump in Canada?
He's probably the most disliked politician in the world in Canada because he's attacked his closest family member, and that's the way we look at it.
Yeah, I don't know about that one, actually. Do the tariffs suck? For sure they do. Does our diplomacy suck much more? Absolutely. And you want to sit there and say that Donald Trump has attacked his closest friend? Doug Ford, do you just want to go and relook at some of the videos, interviews, things that you've posted about Donald Trump? Donald Trump has never once said anything disparaging about Canada or Canadian officials outside of Chrystia Freeland, fair, and Justin Trudeau, fair. Meanwhile, in Canada, you have this.
So we're in this moment, the planet is on fire, and they would rather burn our planet to the ground because that's what gangster fascists do. So I'm going to step outside the box just a bit and give you a sense of what we are doing. Ordinary Canadians have launched a boycott of every single thing American. It wasn't organized, it wasn't planned, it doesn't come from our leadership, it comes from ordinary men and women who won't go into a grocery store and buy a single product from the United States. The shelves are empty.
Dude, it was organized, it was planned, it was propaganda. You literally removed things from the shelves in some provinces. Are you fucking kidding me right now?
We'll get rid of liberal censorship laws that prevent our energy companies from talking about their incredible achievements and their environmental stewardship. We will legalize into the future your right to drive a gas or diesel-powered truck or car by repealing the liberal EV mandate.
And speaking of propaganda in this country, of which Canada is so well known for, of which you see all the time when people talk about things, and you're like, you didn't go past the second page on Google, my girl. Well, Canada is officially investing over $14.4 million through the Environmental Damages Fund to target climate action and awareness across 17 different environmental literacy projects across Canada, with the initiative aiming to equip young Canadians with knowledge and tools to address climate change and support a net zero economy by 2050. Wow, Mark Carney. Look at all of this coming to fruition just as you once wrote about. Fascinating. In fact, BC Parks Foundation awarded $1.8 million, matched with $1.5 million from the BC government, to deliver learning by nature programs that integrate environmental education in schools and parks. Indigenous-led projects received $3.2 million, focusing on blending traditional knowledge with Western climate science. And this is all part of a much larger $206 million 5-year national investment to back Canadian-made initiatives that reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Climate literacy or ideological grooming? Gosh, I just don't know. Yeah, $15 million is a lot of money to put towards fostering how children are going to think and what they're going to believe on a very single-minded narrative to impressionable audiences. But hey, when you have a $14 million propaganda army that you're creating in the schools and you're hiding the real numbers of refugees, temporary residents, and permanent residents, people who've been manipulated into thinking that they owe you their vote, you don't need to give Canadians more freedom. You don't need to give Canadians anything that's fair. You don't even need to offer the opportunity or choice, because all you need is control. And you're already establishing that, because this was never, ever about serving the people. It's always been about owning them and making sure that your power is never touched, no matter how many people pay the price. I'm Jasmine Lane. Subscribe, like, follow, comment your thoughts down below, and of course, share this video. I'll talk to you tomorrow.